Good afternoon. My name is Wayne Fagan. I'm chair of D. Howard International Education Foundation, and I'm here today with our colleague from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Bear with me, this is a long name. Cleese College of Engineering and Integrated Design, and also with Mr. David Hook, who will be our presenter. I'll introduce him in a few moments. But this recording this program is being recorded, and the recording, when it's edited, will be posted on our website for the public to see. We may have other schools joining us, and I'll ask them to indicate their name and school in the chat box. Also, before I forget, if we run out of time for the students at Germantown to ask questions, if the teacher could put your questions in the chat, then the presenter can answer them after we go off the official end of the program. So with that, let me first introduce you to Jill Ford, who is the representative from our partner in this, the University of Texas at San Antonio. Jill, if you'll maybe introduce yourself as far as your position at the university and any welcoming remarks, and then I'll come back to the details as far as the program.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Yes, I'm Jill Ford, the Assistant Dean for Student Success in the Cleese College of Engineering and Integrated Design at UTSA. And so a big hello to all the Germantown Bulldogs that we see in the room. We're so happy to be here with you, and really so happy to be a partner along with the D. Howard International Education Foundation in this rural STEM initiative. And so excited about the program today and to hear from Mr. Hook, and just really happy to be here with you. So I'll pass it back to Wayne.
Thank you, Jill. And as I mentioned, this is going to be recorded. And so let me just officially introduce everyone. And our host school today is Germantown Elementary School District number 60, whose superintendent we've coordinated with, Miss Robin Becker. And we have the students from Germantown with us. Hello, students. And we have one or more of the teachers from Germantown. Thank you so much, teachers. And our topic today, chosen by your school, is about drones. And the official name is Drones in Your Future. And the presenter will be Mr. David Hook, who's the president and founder of Plane Hook Aviation Services. And before Mr. Hook was involved with Plane Hook Aviation Services, he was in the United States Air Force. He's retired from the United States Air Force. Thank you, Mr. Hook, for your service to our country. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to shoot down any balloons over Alaska, but anyhow, we appreciate your service. And Mr. Hook was a pilot in the Air Force and flew a number of different aircraft. And as I mentioned before, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. But first, we give Germantown the priority to ask live questions of Mr. Hook, and we'll go till about 1:35 for him to Mr. Hook to present the program, and then we'll open it up for questions. I see that another school has joined us. We're delighted if they would put in the chat what school they are. And we thank them for joining us, and also we'll invite them to put their questions in the chat as well. So Mr. Hook, I'll turn the floor over to you. Also, if you're not speaking, it helps the recording sound if you mute your laptop or other device, unless you're speaking. So I'll mute and I'll turn it over to Mr. Hook. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Fagan. First of all, welcome everybody. It is my pleasure to be here. And as Mr. Fagan mentioned, in the past, I have flown in the United States Air Force and am proud of my sister and brother pilots out there and other members of the armed services for all that they do. And I'm sure some of them are your parents or brothers and sisters or aunts and uncles. And so to them, I want to say thank you. It takes a team, things happen. So a little bit about me beyond what Mr. Fagan said. I'm a pilot. I am happiest when I'm sitting in an airplane and flying. And one of the things that happened about 7 years ago is someone handed me a remote control box for a drone and said, "Hey, Dave, fly this." Well, let me tell you what, flying an airplane and flying a drone are two different things. And guess what I did? I crashed it. But what I learned was it's a new kind of flying. It takes similar skills, similar knowledge for being a pilot to fly a drone, but you're flying with your feet on the ground. And you have to imagine what it's like, what the drone is flying. So it's flying, but it's completely different. So what I want to do is show with you today where we have come in terms of flying drones and expectation of people in general being able to fly a drone, and kind of where I think it's going to go, because it's going to involve all of you. And you may not think that you'll be flying a drone in 5 years or 10 years, but you may be surprised. So that's what I want to share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. Please, if you have questions, when the presentation is over, I will be happy to answer them. And teachers, I've put my contact information in the chat room. Those that we can't get to afterwards, please feel free to send them to me. I want to make sure everyone's questions are answered. So to start this, let me see if I can get the presentation started here. There we go. And now this should be, there we go. We got it started. How about that? Okay, so again, I want to thank the D. Howard International Education Foundation for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. And again, I look forward to your questions. So the presentation is Drones in Your Future. And as you can see, this young person is flying the drone there in the background. And while that control box may look complicated, it's really no more complicated than flying an Xbox controller or a PlayStation 5 controller. So I am certain anyone and everyone can do it. So drones, who here has a drone? Let me ask that first. Raise your hand. Do you have a drone at home? And if you don't, does a brother or sister or mom and dad, maybe grandma and grandpa have a drone? Yeah, who's got a drone? Okay, who has more than one drone? Yeah, okay. So this is one of those things that once you get started flying the drones, it's kind of hard to stop. And they can do different kinds of things, which is really neat. So when we think of drones, is this what we're really thinking of? Someone flying a four-motor drone in the backyard? Maybe it's got a camera, maybe it doesn't. Well, let me tell you what's going on right now today. Here is heard about Ingenuity. Anyone heard about Ingenuity, the drone that we have on Mars? Yeah, we're flying a drone around on Mars. Actually, NASA is flying the drone on Mars. And here's what's unique about it. We can't have controllers on the ground flying the drone because it can take anywhere from 6 minutes to 20 minutes for that signal from the control box to reach the drone. And guess what? By that time, the drone's crashed. So we actually have to have pilots who sit down with computer programmers and they write code and they beam that to the drone and they tell the drone when to start the program. And then the program runs internally to the drone. It happens all automatically. So we're programming aircraft to fly on other planets. And in fact, we've had 42 flights on Mars so far. And it doesn't look like Ingenuity is going to stop flying. You know, it only flies for about 90 seconds because the air is so thin. By the way, did you know that the air is thin on Mars? Air knows you can't breathe on Mars, but Mars has an atmosphere. It's really thin. Let me give you an example. On a hot summer day on Mars, it can be 70 degrees. That's if you're lying on the ground. When you stand up and it gets to your forehead, temperature will be freezing. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Well, that's the kind of flying environment that Ingenuity was designed to be able to do. And the amount of power that solar collector up on top is able to collect here on Earth, we would be able to fly Ingenuity for maybe 20, 30 minutes. On Mars, because those propellers have to go so fast, it only flies for 90 seconds. So that's drone flying today. But now let's talk about what's in store for you, drones in your future. Here has heard of Dragonfly. Okay, I don't see any hands. So I'm guessing none of you have heard of the Dragonfly drone. Who here has heard of Titan, a moon that orbits Saturn? Well, guess what? You know, good. Yeah, I see some hands there. You've heard of Titan. Titan has an atmosphere that's even thicker than Earth's. And so the Dragonfly drone is going to fly as good or even better on Titan than it could here on Earth. This is why Dragonfly, I think we can call it your space drone. And that's because it's going to launch in about 4 years. So let's see, do we have some 8th graders in here? 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade? Okay. All right. So for the 8th graders, Titan's going to launch when you graduate from high school. For the 5th graders, Titan's going to launch when you get into high school. But it's not going to make it to Titan right off the bat. It's not going to get there until 2034. So for those who are interested in being a part of flying Dragonfly, you could actually go through college and get hired by NASA and go work at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena and fly the Dragonfly. This is your future. But now let's talk about Earth, things that are a little closer to home. You know, we're using drones in agriculture today. And as you can see from this picture, this is a really big drone. And actually, it's got 6 different motors on it to fly. And it's designed to be able to help the farmer control pests and to improve the fertilization of the farmer's crops. Everyone thinks of a farmer as the person who, you know, goes out and plants the crops and drives the tractor and maybe drives a combine to collect the plants at harvest. Who has thought of the farmer as a pilot? Farmers are flying their own drones now, as opposed to hiring crop duster pilots to apply the chemicals they need to have a good harvest. So not only does a farmer today need to be able to drive a tractor and all of the attachments to help them with farming, they're flying drones too, to be a farmer. So can anyone see the farmer in this picture? I got news for you. The farmer's not in the cab of the tractor. Can you kind of see the farmer over here? Maybe not. Let's take a look from the bird's point of view. There's the pilot. There's the farmer. And they're flying the drone. Now that doesn't look like a really big controller to fly that great big drone, does it? In fact, the controller isn't any bigger than the smartphone that the farmer keeps in their pocket. In fact, they attach the smartphone to the controller of the drone so that the farmer can see the picture that the drone is taking as it flies. Can anyone read these words here? Can you see those? Yeah, maybe it's kind of blurry. It's in German. This farmer is in Germany. Okay, so we've got farmers in Germany that are flying drones, and I can tell you, we also have farmers here in the United States doing the same thing. So, in your future, what's the world going to be like? Well, okay. So, what you'll hear some teachers talk about, especially as you get into high school and as you get closer to maybe deciding whether or not you're going to have a job right after school or if you're going to go right into college, they're going to talk about something called a soft skill. So what's a soft skill? It's something that's sort of a personal skill, and it's not necessarily considered specialized. And you might even think it's kind of hard to quantify, figure out what it is. Let me give you an example. How many people here can type on a computer keyboard? Yeah, come on, raise your hands. Yeah. All right, you can type on a computer keyboard. Okay, now I'm going to tell you how much of a dinosaur I am. I had to take a class in high school to learn to type on a typewriter so that eventually, when computers started becoming something we had in our homes, I could type on a keyboard. But now a kindergartner learns how to type on a keyboard. I think I was a junior in high school when I started learning to type. And that was because my teachers told me that not every college professor would accept a handwritten paper, that I actually had to turn in a typed paper. So I had to learn to type on a typewriter. That's not even the case anymore. How many of you turn in papers to your teachers that are typed on the computer? Yeah, okay, I see the hands there. So you know there's been a big change in what is considered a soft skill, something that when I was in school was considered something that was specialized, and you took courses to learn how to do it. It's just expected, and you learn how to do it as you go through school. So that's an example of a modern day soft skill. Another modern day soft skill might be using Microsoft Word, or being able to use Excel, Microsoft Excel, to do some of your math homework. Okay, not anything that I would have had when I was in school. So soft skills change over time based on the technology. So what do you think about the ability to drive yourself, to have a driver's license? Everyone has them, right? But 100 years ago, that was a big deal. We didn't have cars commonly. So driving yourself to work is considered a soft skill. And here's what I think is going to happen. In the next 10 years, being able to fly a drone is going to be just as expected a soft skill to be employed as being able to drive a car and being able to get yourself to and from work. So drones really are going to become an expected skill. What do you think about this construction crew? Do you think when they got hired initially, they thought, oh yeah, I'm going to get hired and I'm going to learn to fly a drone? This is something that's come along because we can get some unique things by using a drone that help those people doing the site surveys for the road construction that they can use that helps benefit the public. So now we find construction crews flying drones. Here's another example. Whoever thought we would be using drones for environmental protection? You all see the green trees in there? Those are the healthy trees in the forest. And you see the trees with the blight? Okay. The point is being able to put a drone up in the air and take pictures can be very helpful in terms of trying to figure out just how infected a forest has become with a particular blight. And in fact, this person, you might look at them and say, oh yeah, they're a lumberjack. Not this guy. This guy actually works for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and no fooling, he's a tree surgeon. His job is to go and cut down those blighted trees to try and save the healthy trees. To be able to do that, he has to be able to fly a drone to see where the center of the blight is happening. So one of the things that these last two examples show is that drones can give us a bird's eye view. We can see things in a way that we used to not be able to see. Who here uses Google Earth? Likes to zoom around, look at the world on Google Earth. That's pretty neat. But the pictures that you're looking at are anywhere from 6 months to 2 years old. What a drone can do is provide you with that Google Earth type picture that's right now. Let me give you an example. Do you see the park here on the right, here in the city? Let's imagine that someone is taking a walk, and from a police point of view, let's say that person gets mugged. They get attacked by someone and their purse or their wallet is stolen. Let me tell you how a drone helps in that. Police person flying the drone hears the help, and the drone figures out where that came from and then identifies the assailant running away, and then puts a little box around them. And that box follows them the entire way. It used to be maybe if the thief could run a block away, that they would get away. That doesn't happen with the drone. That drone will keep track of the thief, even if they go into a building. You know what happens when they go into a building with our drones now? The drone, in its memory, remembers how reflective the person was looking down. And that's based upon how much light there is, what color clothing they were wearing, if they were wearing a jacket or a backpack, whatever it was they were carrying, it reflects a certain amount of light, and it remembers. And so let's say that person runs into a building with the idea of going out the other side of the building and to keep running. The drone will just wait until that little bit of reflection that came in one side goes out the other side, and then it just keeps tracking them. So does the thief ever get away? As long as the drone's in the air, it'll keep following them. So this is an example of how law enforcement and public safety are using drones to protect people in the cities. Let's look at another example of how public safety can use a drone. We can use them for emergency response. Why? Because it can leap over obstacles that people might have to climb over or cars might have to drive around. The drone is able to fly directly to where it's needed. So when there is a disaster, and even though this particular picture is showing a disaster on a dock or a quay, you've probably heard about the big earthquakes in Turkey. They're using drones there to be able to listen for people and see signs of life underneath the rubble. Because we can put special cameras and special sensors on the drone and just fly them to where we think the people are and listen. So a drone can be a lifesaver. How about this? You've probably heard a lot of hospitals saying that they have low blood supplies, that on certain holiday weekends, they're begging for people to come donate blood because they don't have enough blood. Well, part of that is they have a tough time transporting the blood to where it needs to go. But this is a pretty common way to do it. You have them put the units of blood necessary. Let's say someone's undergoing surgery and they need more blood. So they put it in an ambulance, and the ambulance turns on its sirens. And let's say it's only 2 miles away. That's not very far. In fact, in a truck like this, it could take anywhere from 2 minutes to 5 minutes to get that blood there. Unless this happens. So again, one of the advantages of knowing how to fly a drone, being able to use a drone to help others, we can put that blood that's needed or that organ that needs to be transplanted in a drone, and it can leap over the bad traffic and be there in a minute to maybe 2 minutes. So we can do some pretty amazing things with unmanned aircraft. And it's not just, flying blood and flying, hearts and lungs and other stuff. You can get your stuff from Amazon being delivered by a drone. That's actually going on here in Texas, College Station, and the city of Dallas. They're test sites here, at least in the state of Texas, for Amazon deliveries using drones. Those drones need pilots and computer programmers and planners. So this is why I think drones are something that's going to be in your future, maybe sooner than most people think. Now, let's see if I can get my, oh, sorry. Let's go back. So we can take some pretty amazing pictures here with drones. Like this one here, you can see all the pretty fall foliage. But we can do a lot of other things other than just artistic picture taking with drones. And frankly, this is what I see in your future. And you know what? It's hard to imagine exactly what 10 years will be like. What we will see unmanned aircraft doing, what your world that you will be in charge of, okay? You're going to be the ones doing the work. You're going to be the ones earning the paychecks and having families. And me and folks like me, we're going to be the grandmas and grandpas or great grandmas and great grandpas, and you're going to be in charge. So this is really the future that I see for your world, and that learning to fly a drone is just a very small part of it, but I think it's going to be an important part of it. And I hope I've been able to excite you about the possibilities out there, because that's what this is. It's a possibility. It doesn't mean that you have to do it, but there are some pretty amazing things out there. And I have to say, as a presenter, one of the challenges that I have is not to limit your imaginations by my imagination. Because remember, 40 years ago, I was typing on a typewriter. You're typing on computers. Imagine what the world's going to be like 40 years from now. That's your world. So, teachers, here is my contact information. You are welcome to reach out to me with your students' questions, and I will be happy to answer them. Mr. Fagan and Ms. Ford, I'm ready for questions and answers.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Since I'm the moderator, I'll call on myself to ask the first question, and then I'll turn it over to the students at Germantown. So you showed pictures of somebody driving a car. And the thought occurred to me that the person driving the car needed to get a license from a government agency. The state of Texas, if we're in Texas, or the state of Illinois, or the state of Missouri, they needed to get a license. Somebody in the local or state government, federal government sometimes needed to give them permission to do what it is they wanted to do. So with drones, the question is there an agency at the local, state, or federal government that grants somebody a license to fly drones? Do you need a license to fly drones, or can you just fly drones as you showed in the picture over somebody's house? Could you just talk for a minute about that? And then we'll ask the students for questions.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Fagan, that's an excellent question. And it used to be until about 3 years ago, if you just wanted to fly a drone for fun, you could just go buy one and fly it. But about 2.5 years ago, the Federal Aviation Administration came out with a course and test that everyone has to take if you want to fly a drone for fun. So it is a federal level license. It's free. The course is free, and the test that you take along with the course is free, and you get your license immediately. If you want to fly commercially, and what that means is flying for the benefit of somebody else, whether or not you get paid for it. If you fly for someone else's benefit, you have to have a commercial drone license, what we call a remote pilot certificate. And you go through a ground school, just like any other kind of pilot certification program. And you take a written test that the Federal Aviation Administration provides. And if you pass the test, then you're given a commercial license. So there are two different levels of licenses. They're both overseen by the Federal Aviation Administration, and the recreational license is provided for free after you pass the course. And the commercial license, you have to pay for the test and the ground school, but after you pass that, you can fly and earn money flying a drone.
So, sorry for another question. Is there a age limit on? Do you have to be a certain age before you can get a commercial license?
Okay, so for the commercial license, you have to be 16 years old. So basically, if you can get a driver's license, you can have a commercial drone license. But now let me take one more step into that question. For the recreational pilots, there is no age limit. And I can tell you that I have taught students at the 4th grade level, and they earned their recreational pilot's license before they got their driver's license.
So who gives the recreational license? Who gives that to the pilot?
Okay, so there are a number of providers. It's all online, and it's about a 15 to 30 minute online course that has questions built into it. And after you take the course, it will give you a unique identification number and a card that you can print up or record, let's say, on your computer or your smart device. And that's what you show in case, let's say, a police officer comes up and says, "Excuse me, Mr. Hook, I see you flying a drone there. May I see your drone pilot's license?"
So this is my last question, and I'll ask it to the students. I was getting to this. I saw a lot of hands go up when you asked who has a drone and who has one drone, who has two drones, and a lot of students raised their hands. Now I have a question. As a lawyer, how many of you that have drones, because this is all news to me, I didn't know this, how many of you that have drones and fly drones around have the license that Mr. Hook is talking about? Could we have a show of hands? Uh-huh. Well, I wish I had my card that I could hand you, because you may need a good lawyer. They won't go to jail, will they?
No. Ultimately, we want people to enjoy flying. And the Federal Aviation Administration, their job is not to stop you from flying. They just want to make sure that when you fly that you do it safely and you follow the rules, just like you want to have someone behind the wheel of a car follow the rules when they drive, because it makes it safer for everybody. So they're not out to toss you in jail and make you pay big fines. They just want you to know the rules. And so these programs are available for free, and I'll be happy to provide the website where the teachers and students can get that.
I think that would be helpful. Now, to whoever's in charge of the students at Germantown, if we'll take questions from the students at Germantown, if you'll organize that, maybe have them come up to the laptop and ask their question. Take it off mute, please.
We have a few questions. Here's our first one.
How high can the drones fly?
Okay. They fly as high as the pilot tells them to fly, but you're not supposed to go above 400 feet generally. Now there are some rules that can allow a pilot to go higher, and there are some situations where the pilot can't fly as high as 400 feet. And sometimes there are some places where we can't fly at all unless we have very special permission. But in general, the rule is 400 feet.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
How long does a battery last on a drone?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So the batteries today for most drones will last, let's say for a Tello drone, which is pretty commonly used in school, that'll last anywhere from 6 to 9 minutes. But if you get a larger drone and maybe a more powerful battery, anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes is a reasonable flight time.
How long does it take to recharge the battery, Mr. Hook?
Oh my goodness. Well, that can take anywhere from an hour to maybe 3 to 4 hours. It just depends. One, it depends on how many other things you have plugged in to the light socket where you're doing the charging, because your household current only provides so much power. So if you have a lot of other things plugged in and they're pulling a lot of current, it'll take it longer. But generally about an hour for the average battery and up to 4 hours for a very heavy duty battery for a very large drone.
Thank you. So Germantown, do you have other questions from the students?
We have 3 more lined up.
Oh, great. Then I'll be quiet and let them ask their questions.
Do you know how expensive the drones are?
Yes, and you ask a really tough question, and that's because some drones are built to be more like toys, and so you can buy a drone for as little as $20, and then you can get a drone that takes extraordinarily high definition and has the capability of tracking something or someone, and that can be upwards of $5,000. I've seen some drones that are available for the public to buy that are as much as $80,000. It really depends on what you want the drone to do. Here's the thing. The drone is like having a tool in your toolbox. Some of the tools you have in your toolbox, like the really small little screwdriver, probably cost. But when you get a really powerful vice grip and it has a lot of leverage to it and it's made out of chrome vanadium steel, that might be a $75 tool. So drones are just a tool. They're a way of putting something up in the sky, whatever that thing is, and some are stronger and more precise than others.
Next question. Thank you, Mr. Hook.
Okay, our next question is,
Is there an illegal size on drones?
An illegal size? Okay, okay. So, boy, that is a really good question. So here is the answer, and I will do my best to talk like a pilot and less like a lawyer. Okay. For recreational flying, without any kind of a waiver or special permission, drones can weigh as much as 55 pounds. Now, who among you can hold a weight of 55 pounds over your head? Okay. Who among you wants to drop a 55-pound weight over the top of your head? Now imagine putting that 55-pound weight at 400 feet over someone's head. So you can fly something as heavy as 55 pounds, but you really need to ask yourself, is it a good idea? And probably as a flight instructor, the single biggest thing that I try and teach my drone students is just because you can do something doesn't make it a good idea. So think about what it is that you're doing if you want to put that 55-pound drone 400 feet in the air. Is there anything underneath it? 55 pounds falling from 400 feet will very likely crash through the roof of a building. So you have to think about about the risk involved in taking that very heavy thing and putting it up in the sky. Maybe it's a good idea and you can do it and no one can get hurt. All you're going to do is make a crater in the middle of a pasture. Maybe it's going to go right through the middle of someone's Cadillac Escalade, and someone's going to hand you or your parents a bill for $100,000. So think about what you're doing when you put something that heavy up in the sky. But the general rule is 55 pounds. It can be heavier with special circumstances.
Thank you. Next question.
Is there like a restricted airspace, and do you have an example of one?
Okay, yes, there is restricted airspace, and I have a great example. It's the White House. Okay, it is against the law. It is restricted for anything other than the president's helicopter to fly to and from the White House. About 5 years ago, there was an incident where someone in the middle of the night bought one of these newfangled things called a drone, and they were a member of the White House staff, and they crashed it onto the White House lawn. Okay, it was against the law to fly the aircraft without the specific permission of the Secret Service there. So that's an example of a restricted area. Another restricted area would be, let's see, I'm trying to think of something up in Chicago. I can't think of anything in Chicago off the top of my head. But
what about
here,
O'Hare Airport?
Well, O'Hare is a good example. It's not restricted, but it's airspace that is set aside for those big airliners that go in and out of there. And again, this goes back to just because you can do something doesn't make it a good idea. flying a drone near a place like Chicago O'Hare Airport, you might be able to get permission to do it, but you would have to go through an awful lot of people and a lot of agencies to get that permission. So by the time you do that, people would be pretty sure that you could safely put that drone up in the air. But there's a difference between what we call an airspace restriction and classes of airspace. Chicago O'Hare has a special class of airspace. It's not restricted because aircraft fly in and out of there all the time. It's just that there are certain rules we have to follow flying drones when we fly near these airports.
All right, so it's more likely that all of us watching this will be closer to an airport than the White House.
Probably.
So what are the rules generally about flying drones near airports?
Okay. There are a lot of different kinds of airports. Some are more complex than others. Chicago O'Hare is a very complex airport, but in San Antonio, Stinson Airport is a little less complex. And then if you go out to an airport that's out in the middle of nowhere, it's a lot less complex. The rules change, and the requirements to be able to obtain an authorization change. Some places you don't need to have an authorization, but other places like Chicago O'Hare, just like the captain of the 747 needs permission from the control tower to land, a drone pilot needs to get a similar permission from the control tower, and there's a way to do it, to be able to land there.
What about near military bases?
Okay, military bases are a very special exception. There is a what's called a notice to air missions that tells all drone pilots, unless you have specific permission from the installation commander, and that could be anywhere from a colonel to a 4-star general, unless you have specific permission from them to fly, you are prohibited from flying a drone over that base.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions from Georgetown? Because we have a couple of minutes left, and if Frankfurt has any questions, we'd love to hear them from Frankfurt also. But any questions from any more questions?
You've answered all of Germantown's.
Okay, great. Is anyone with us from Frankfurt Elementary? I see the students. Or have you all been, so you don't have a teacher there? No? Anyhow, go ahead.
We do, sorry. We have a question asking the smallest drone, like what can the smallest drone weigh? You talked about the largest one and what would be safe, but what is the smallest one that can fly? What does it weigh?
Oh my goodness. Well, all right. Here's an example of a small drone. Okay, this is a Tello drone. This is one that's commonly used in school. And it weighs less than 1/4 pound. It has a lot of capability to fly because of all the electronics that are in it. But you can get drones that weigh even less. In fact, I've seen drones, special drones that are flown by our special forces, by our Green Berets, to do special surveillance before they go into a room knowing that they're going to have to fight. And they're smaller than a dragonfly. And they fly that in there, and it weighs less than a dragonfly, but it has the same kind of television capability as the largest drones. So they can be very small, and you won't even know that they're a drone.
Go ahead, Frankfurt.
I have a student who would like to know how long it took you to learn to fly your first drone.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to embarrass myself here. So when the drones first started coming out at a capability where old guys like me could fly them, and not, young people like you who are Xbox experts, because you probably would learn to fly it just like this. It took me some time to get used to flying a drone that didn't have any automatic throttles, could not hover automatically by itself, did not have any GPS or station keeping. It was basically a little dinghy in the ocean. And that took me actually to master it. And I'm not even sure I want to say I mastered it, but I learned to fly it, control it enough. It took me 3 or 4 weeks of going out after having charged the batteries that I had and flying it and crashing it into a tree and then picking it back up and then putting a new battery in it and then getting it started again and then fly it until either the battery ran out or it became a part of the house, kind of thing. It took me a couple of weeks to do it, but the little drone that I just showed you, the little Tello drone, for example, you can learn to fly the very first time you fly it because it has so many automatic features, like being able to hover, and it has a little camera that takes pictures of the ground as it flies. So when you tell it to stop, it inside, so it can't see the GPS satellites. So it doesn't know where it is, but it knows where it is over the ground and it keeps taking pictures. And as long as the picture doesn't change, it knows that it's right over where it needs to hover. That you can learn to fly the first time you take off. It's that simple.
Any other questions from Frankfurt?
Do you have a favorite drone to fly? And if so, what's your coolest thing you've seen while flying that drone?
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you a terrible answer that's a pilot's answer. My favorite airplane is the airplane I'm flying at the time. My favorite drone is the one that I'm flying right then. I have a number of different kinds of drones. For my large drone that I actually wear goggles when I fly. I have another person who spots the drone while I fly it, and I put on goggles. It's a Mavic 2 professional drone, and it actually transmits the television signal back to a set of virtual reality goggles that I wear. And it's just like being in the cockpit of an airplane because it tells me the altitude on one side and the speed on another side and the amount of battery power I have across the top and the signal strength. It tells me everything. And I'm looking at what the eagle sees when I'm flying it. That's my favorite, I suppose. But ultimately, I just love flying. So I love flying whatever I'm flying at the time.
Frankfurt, any other questions?
We have one last one, another 2-part one. What is the smallest drone you've flown and what is the largest drone you've flown?
Okay, that's an excellent question. The smallest drone I've flown, I can't even think of the name of it. It's smaller than my fist, and it had 4 propellers to make it fly, and it didn't have anything on it that was automatic. So I had to keep it level. I had to provide the right amount of power to keep it hovering. And that was really fun. Let's see if I can find an example of it. It looks like this. Okay. And this little drone is actually a racing drone. We call it a tiny whoop. Okay, so this tiny whoop is actually a television station because it has a TV camera in the front of it.
So, Mr. Hook, we're out of time, but I would like you to answer the second part of the question if you can remember it, because I.
Sure. Okay. And the largest drone I've flown is the Mavic 2 Pro that I have. It weighs about 2 pounds.
That's the largest you've flown?
That's right. The largest drone that I've flown. Don't ask me to tell you the largest airplane I've flown, because I think special operations prevents me from doing that.
No. Well, thank you, Mr. Hook. Students at Frankfurt and at Germantown, could we give a big round of applause to Mr. Hook and to our wonderful friends and colleagues at UTSA Cleese College of Engineering and Integrated Design. Ms. Ford, thank you so much for hosting this, and we appreciate it so much. And teachers, thank you for your support, for all that you do. And we'll have to schedule another time where the classes show us how you're doing flying your drones. So stay tuned for our next presentation. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.